All right, chapter 12. Three simple things we're going to tackle out of chapter 12. Number one, effectively organize a business presentation. Two, successfully implement visual aids. And third and finally, conquer stage fright when speaking. Oh boy. Okay, so let's tackle our first objective, organization. Folks, organization is everything when speaking. It might not seem that it's that important, but let me tell you, it is everything because it indicates to your listener that you know what you're talking about, you're in control, you're prepared. And when that audience feels at ease, they can just simply sit back and listen. Now, if we contrast that, if a speaker is nervous and flustered and disorganized, the audience is absorbing those same feelings. So your organization is everything. Let's look at the quote from Dale Carnegie. Tell the audience what you're going to say it, then tell them what you've said. This, folks, is the basic, ever so simple, yet often overlooked strategy when organizing a business presentation. Other terms that mean the same thing, intro, body, conclusion. We've done a lot of writing in this class where we have open body close. Now we're taking that same concept and we're applying it to speaking. Intro, body, conclusion. Okay, so let's tackle the introduction. Now, I know you've had a speech class as part of your education. So I'm going to take these same key concepts, but again, we're thinking about this in terms of presenting at work. The introduction has four critical components, and I'm going to start at the bottom. State your purpose. Make sure you know with pinpoint precision what you are going to talk about. Get the audience's attention. Use a statistic, a quote, ask a question, participation. Bring them into the message. Establish relationship. What that means is you need to let them know that I am talking to you. This message is for you. I'm not rattling off a pre-recorded speech. And then preview your main points. Prepare them. Tell the listener the three things you're going to talk about. This sets the stage, okay? It's the tell them what you're going to tell them piece, but it also puts them at ease, that you are in the driver's seat, you're in control. So let me give you a sample introduction, and I'm going to use this exact chapter. If I was teaching in the workplace about how to put together a business presentation, this may be my introduction. Okay. All right, team. Today, I'm going to teach you how to effectively provide a business presentation. Okay, so that is my purpose. Now I'm going to get their attention. All right, so I'm looking at you all, and there's 10, 12 of us here. Raise your hand if you've ever feared presenting in front of your coworkers. Okay, now keep those hands up if that fear prevented you from practicing and putting the time you need in for that presentation. Okay, so I'm stepping to the side again, class. That's my attention grabber, right? I'm bringing them into the message. And throughout this, I'm establishing relationship, shared experiences, okay? Now I'm jumping back to the introduction. I need to preview my three main points. So today, as mentioned, we are going to learn how to put together an awesome business presentation. Three simple things. We're going to talk number one, organization, two, visual aids, and third, how to overcome stage fright. And by the end of our time together, you will know how to put together a beautiful business presentation. Okay, so that sample introduction is taking the content of this textbook and just parlaying it into a business presentation style introduction. So that is your intro. Next, you have your body of the speech. Now, this is simple, but this does oftentimes require research and reorganization. So in the body of the speech, you have just three main points, not four, not two, three. There's a lot of psychology that indicates people can remember three things, but they won't remember five as well. People can remember one thing, but if the one main point is that huge, it's going to get lost in the content. So three main points. And then for each main point, you need a subpoint. And what that means is two or three supporting items. So if my first main point is organization, I'm going to talk intro, body, conclusion. And then I may provide a story or a visual or data. So I'm supporting that key idea with subpoints. And again, that's your research. And then most importantly, make sure that everything is supporting that purpose. So if my purpose today is to teach you how to put together a fantastic business presentation, everything I share must be in the scope of that purpose, okay? So the body, 3 main points, 2 to 3 subpoints. Now, the last thing we need to hit within the body, it is so critically important, is transitions. You have an outline in front of you or notes. You know your 3 main points, but all the listener has are your words to let them know where you are tracking, how you are moving forward in the presentation. So if I am giving this presentation on a business presentation, I need to transition. I need to let the listener know I'm moving to the next point. So let me give you an example of that. We're going to assume I just wrapped up my first point on organization. And my transition might sound like this. Okay, team, so we just talked organization. We discussed intro, body, conclusion. Now let's leap to our second point. The second thing we're going to talk about today is using visual aids. Okay, so notice there, folks, that I added a lot of numbers because numbers are kind of like you waving your arms and saying, okay, hey, we're moving on. There's progress. If we try and get too fancy or polished, the audience doesn't catch the transition. So make it overt and simple. Moving on to my second point. Now my third and final point. Okay, it's okay to just be overtly simple when transitioning. Okay, the third and final thing then we are going to talk about under organization is that of the conclusion. Now, in writing terms, this is our close. In speaking terms, we're concluding. My best suggestion here is to just mirror your introduction. Repeat your purpose. Summarize your main points. Just state them back one more time and then give that audience something to remember. One final thought, okay? Maybe it's a quote, a challenge. So let me use our same scenario and I'll provide a conclusion for you. Okay, team. So we just talked about how to build an effective business presentation. The 3 things we discussed was number 1, organization, number 2, visual aids, and then third and finally, stage fright. Okay, I challenge you, team, please, the next time you are tasked to face your peers and speak to them, remember organization, visual aids, stage fright. I challenge you to implement this, and I guarantee that presentation is going to be fantastic. Okay, so that's just a simple sample conclusion, again, using that same criteria. But again, restate the purpose, summarize the main points, and then just give that audience one final thought. I'm all about short and sweet conclusions. I think if we've held on to our audience throughout the presentation, go with that, right? Wrap it up and be on the way. Okay, the third and final thing we're going to talk about, see my transition there? Successfully implementing visual aids. Actually, this is the second thing, my mistake. Clarification, point number 2, visual aids. Here's the deal. Visual aids are wonderful, but they go wrong really quick. So our text gives us this definition. A visual aid is visual, auditory, and tactile supplements intended to enhance the clarity and effectiveness of a presentation. Keyword there, intended to enhance. If it's not enhancing, get rid of it. Okay, so this is very basic, but we have all kinds of types of visual aids. We have PowerPoint or various software that involves slide decks. Objects, if you bring in something and show your audience, right? That's an object. Film, if you show a short video clip, that's using film. Pictures, photographs, great visual aids. Maps, and oftentimes we need a chart or a graph to kind of take the thinking out of it for the listener. Now, all of these things are great, but I caution you, there is a point of too much. We want to make sure our visual aids are clean, simple, and just simply enhancing your role as the presenter. The visual aids are not doing the work for you. And that's where PowerPoint goes wrong. When people put too much on the slide and then they find themselves reading it. And then, according to the audience, they're almost deemed unnecessary because an audience is capable of reading a slide. So the key is enhancement. So let's look at some specific techniques here within visual aids. Contrast. Okay, let's look at the left. This contrast, woo, we got a lot of contrast, right? This is too much. This is going to make your audience eyes dance. Whereas the contrast on the right here is clear and simple. So we want to make sure our contrast is clean, simple, and not overdone. Less is more. Next up, minimal language. Oh my, oh my. This is probably the number one error I see in visual aids in the workplace. We just do too much, okay? So whether you have a headache yet or your eyes are dancing, there is content within here on minimal language. But I want you to look at this and just identify what's going wrong, right? We have different fonts, we have different colors, we have tons of words. It never ends, right? So if this slide is intending to teach rules of bullet points, it's not doing a very good job. So let me contrast that. Rules of bullet points, 6 words maximum. So if you are going to have a bullet, many of these have busted through that 6-word limit, right? 6 words maximum. 6 or less bullets, large, simple font, and no symbols. So honestly, folks, this slide is trying to say the exact same thing, but look at where the visuals took it. Look at how it went wrong. Clean, simple, the rule of 6. No more than 6 bullets, no more than 6 words per bullet, large, simple font, and no symbols. Okay, biggie here, enhance, do not distract. These two visuals say the exact same thing. Now, I'm sure without thinking, you would gravitate towards the one on the right. What's going wrong here with the one on the left? Well, first, it's too much. We have tons of text, we have different fonts, we have too much contrast where we can't even decipher the words. So, simple example, but make sure that your visuals are doing this. They provide a guide for the listener. It helps them organize the message and provides deeper understanding, but it doesn't confuse or distract. Okay, practicing with your visual aids. This is a biggie. If you're going to use visuals, work with them before the presentation, okay? Practice the integration. Display as needed. Now, just as we're moving through this chapter talk, I have referred back to different visuals as needed, but don't keep all your visuals in front of the audience. Show them only what they need in reference to what you are saying. Stay on the side of your visuals, right? This is a simple one, but it often goes wrong when people stand in front of them. Interact with your visual. Notice how this speaker is pointing to his graph or chart, and limit the number of visuals. If you have a visual, make sure it's truly helping your message. Okay, the last thing in this chapter talk, conquering stage fright. We all have it, and I want you to know that this isn't a bad thing. Stage fright is our body's natural adrenaline. And adrenaline sharpens our focus. It provides us energy. It helps you find that word that you would be grasping for otherwise. But how do we channel that adrenaline? Okay. Techniques are text reviews, visualization. Visualize yourself in front of the room, smiling, nodding, your audience engaged. If possible, practice in the room you're going to present. Just having those same nonverbal cues helps you go back to that place you visualized. Deep breathing, okay? Now, I have a child on the spectrum who has anxiety, so we do a lot of this. But when you do deep breathing, it triggers the parasympathetic nerve that actually resets your nervous system. And then power poses, okay? Even your stance, movement, all those things help channel that adrenaline and make it a positive versus a negative. Now, the last thing I need to say about this is visualization, deep breathing, power poses, all that stuff is fantastic. But if you don't practice, it's not going to help you. The work you put into before the presentation is what makes it. Okay, so we are going to skip this because it's a bit redundant and jump to our recap. 3 things we talked about: organizing business presentations, intro, body, conclusion, implementing visual aids, and conquering stage fright when speaking.